Welcome to the IMAX Show. It is IMAX, host of the IMAX Show. As you know, yesterday was the 97th Academy Awards, 2025 Oscars, and of course, I have some thoughts about it, but every year I care less and less about it, the Oscars. I get less and less annoyed, less and less frustrated, less and less mad about what happens, who says what wins what, who loses what. So every year I have less and less to say about it, but that doesn't mean I don't have anything to say about it. So I'm going to talk about a few things. I have some bullet points, overall, pros and cons. So I'm just going to kind of run through it real quick, just so you're aware about what I thought, because there are a couple things I do want to say. So for overall, people are pretty ecstatic that Honora won pretty much everything it was nominated for. I think it won 5 out of its 6 nominations. So they're all saying this is a victory for independent film. And I just want to throw out an idea. I'm just throwing it out there, putting it out in the ether. I don't have a fleshed out opinion or an answer, okay? So don't get too mad at me. But you can get a little mad at me for even suggesting this. But should independent film have won last night? Excuse me. And they say that because Honora was an independent film. Flow was an independent Latvian animated film that won Best Animated Feature over The Wild Robot, which is a big studio DreamWorks film. But anyway, yeah, so leading up to the Oscars, and frequently during the Oscars, if you pay any attention, they constantly refer to the Oscars as Hollywood's biggest night. So to me, doesn't that mean that the Oscars should be about Hollywood films? Sure, you can have that foreign film category. You can add a Best Independent Film award, but all the rest, all the other categories, the nominees, and the winners should be Hollywood films. I'm just throwing that out there. We already have independent film awards. You got the Independent Spirit Awards, and you have the Gotham Awards. I think the Gotham Awards are independent film. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. But I know for a fact Independent Spirit Awards is independent. It's in the freaking name. So I'm just, again, just casting that to you. Just that notion, okay? Don't eat me up. I don't even know how I feel about it exactly. But I get closer and closer to thinking that since I don't think Hollywood really has its own awards for Hollywood-specific films only. These independent films and foreign films are starting to creep in a bunch of other categories over the last few decades. Anyway, okay, so also, if you watched my video from yesterday, I did Oscar predictions. If you're curious about that, I was 15 for 23. I came in second in my pool of friends and family. There's about 12 of us, and I tied for second with my wife. And I do my own Oscars. I'll talk about that later. So look forward to that, okay? All right, so pros. Conan O'Brien, I was actually looking forward to Conan O'Brien hosting. If I had to pick a favorite late night show host, comedian, talk show host, person, whatever, he's probably it. Unless you want to count Tom Green, but that would never happen. His Substance spoof was pretty good. His song about not wasting time was decent. And he had some good jabs and jokes here and there. And for specific awards, I'm glad Dune won over VFX, but I think it should have been Alien Romulus. I'm glad The Substance won makeup, but I think it should have been Nosferatu. I'm glad The Brutalist won cinematography. I'm glad Dune won sound. I'm glad The Brutalist won original score. I'm glad Emilia Perez lost foreign flick and nearly everything else it was nominated for. It only got 2 of its 13 nominations, and I'm sure that's due to the backlash from the subject matter and the opinions of the public, because they seem to be pretty mad about that movie. I never saw it. It has a 2.6 on Letterboxd, and it has 13 nominations at the Oscars. That's crazy to me. And instead, I'm Still Here won, which I guess is pretty good. And it made like 20-something times its budget back. Okay, not that that means anything. And then I'm glad Flo won Animated Film. I'm glad Mikey Madison won Best Actress. I'm glad Adrian Brody won Best Actor. I'm happy for Sean Baker, but I do wish it was for a better film. I didn't like Honora that much. I'll get into that later. Something like The Florida Project would have been better, because that's his best film so far, in my opinion. And I do still think his best film could still be ahead of him. All right, and cons. So it's the Oscars. They're known to getting political the last couple over a decade now. But it's probably the least political it's ever been in a long time. It's to be expected anyway. Conan had two political jokes, and at least they were just like one-liners. They weren't a whole bit or a skit. One, I think, was fine because the target of the joke was there, so it's kind of all in good fun. And the second joke was stupid and nonsensical, but I won't go there because this is not a political channel. I don't want to divide like they do. And as much as I liked his I Won't Waste Time song, it would have been more appreciated, more funny if he actually didn't waste the time, even though the song itself wastes time, because it keeps repeating, I won't waste your time. But the idea was still he was going to make the Oscars shorter because they've always been long. But it's no shorter than it really ever has been. This is just as long as, don't pick making the numbers, like just generally speaking, this is not that much shorter than the last few Oscars. And what's kind of confusing is because a few years ago they took out the Best Sound Mixing and Editing awards to save on time to make it just Best Sound. They condensed it into one. And this year they cut the performances of the Best Original Songs to save on time. But for some reason, they cut those, but then they throw in performances of other songs. So it didn't really save any time at all. They do 3 Wicked songs in the opening. They do a 3-song Bond medley. And they do a song from The Wiz sung by Queen Latifah. So it was really kind of confusing. You wanted to save time and cut those original song performances out, but you just did that. And I do think they need to cut the, what do they call the honorary Oscar award? I don't really think that could save on runtime. I don't really think that many people watching the broadcast care that much. I'm sure the people inside the theater watching care, but that could save you some time right there. And speaking of time, Conan makes this whole thing about, hey, this isn't just about A-list actors and actresses. This is about the crew and craftsmen and technical people. So we're honoring and elevating you guys too. But then anytime they get a speech, they get half the time, maybe even less, and get cut off nearly every time. Music, mic, like the music comes in and their mics get cut. But these performers get to go on all day. Kieran Culkin, as sweet as his speech was, got to go for on way too long. And Adrian Brody, most of all, steamrolled his speech probably more than anyone ever has in the history of the Oscars. And it was so irritating. It was so selfish. My entire theater I saw it at was the Tampa Theater. They play the Oscars and you can all watch and dress up. We were all like, come on, dude, wrap it up. Come on, cut his mic. Come on, play the music. And they do end up playing the music. And he demands that they stop playing the music and let him finish. It's the most self-centered, I don't know there's not a strong enough word for just how ruthlessly selfish it was. And I don't really have a problem with what he said. What he said was fine, but took too long to say it and was a jerk about it. But also, I find it quite ironic that people are mad that he said anti-Semitism bad. All right, I'm not going to get political, but people are mad that he was saying anti-Semitism is bad. Even though, you got your Palestine movie that won Best Documentary, and they got to do their speech, and now the pro-Israel guy gets to say his thing. Isn't that the best? Don't we want both sides? Don't we want that? Why do we? All right. I'm not going to do it. But it is. All right, speaking of certain awards, I only really got like 2-3 awards to specifically point out. El Mal winning Best Original Song is crazy. I didn't see the movie, but I heard all the songs to make my predictions, and I was laughing. I laugh anytime, actually, when I hear it. I laugh so much because it's just so bad. It's mind-boggling bad. I don't understand how it got any attention whatsoever. Made funnier by the fact that it's getting so much attention. But it's so awful. It's the worst song I've ever heard in my life. And then Conclave winning Best Adapted Screenplay just goes to show how out of touch Hollywood elites are of Catholics, Christians, just religious people in general. The movie's fine up until a certain point when it becomes really ignorant and unrealistic in its conclusion. That would never be the outcome and how it comes to that outcome. All right, and then lastly, I want to say Anora winning Screenplay and Best Picture, I have a problem with. Sorry, my camera did the classic thing where it stops recording on me. I'm going to start from Anora. So, Anora, I'm not psyched that it won. I think it's both objectively and subjectively not a great movie. Subjectively speaking, for me, I don't care for all the sex and nudity. Just because your movie has a sex worker / stripper in it Doesn't mean you have to make your entire first 45 minutes boobs and butts and sex. It just seems a little superfluous and didn't add anything really. And then subjectively speaking, I thought the whole conflict was avoidable. So Ani/Honora is this woman who works at a strip club. She meets a Russian family oligarch son who she develops a relationship with, and then they go to Vegas to get married on a whim. They barely know each other. It's been like a week probably, maybe 2 weeks, and they get married. And the family, the parents find out about it. The Russian kids' parents find out about it. They fly from all the way to Russia to America to annul it, and shenanigans ensue. But again, I thought the whole thing was avoidable. For one, the damage has already been done. They're married, okay? Just let them live out their marriage. I mean, she did quit, and I think it would just be a big F you and be like, hey, they're in love, and this is a real marriage, and they're going to love each other for the rest of their lives, and it's going to be great. She's not stripping anymore. Remember, she's not stripping anymore. So they should have just, threw it in their public's faces and be like, so what? They're married, and she's not doing it anymore. And second, if this Russian oligarch family, his parents, are so powerful and influential, couldn't they make the story go away? Can't they just say, hey, she's actually not a stripper, and make proof using their power and influence to make that the case? Or they can just spin it and be like, yeah, this is just a media hoax and it's all lies, and don't listen to them. She's not a stripper, whatever. They can make it go away. Or in the worst case scenario, start killing people who are reporting the story, and then everybody stops talking about it. And then Ani herself could make it go away. I mean, she does threaten to sue them, and they threaten her, basically. But what does she have to lose? She lives in a crappy apartment with a roommate she doesn't seem to like, where there's a train 10 feet behind their house that goes off every 10 minutes. She works at a strip club, which she doesn't even want to do because she quits it the second she can. And I don't think her parents are together. She has a mom and sister she loves, so presumably, I guess the Russians could kill them, but I would call their bluff. I don't think they would. And then the last thing is Ani/Honora could at any time, many times, countless times, run away from him when they're dragging her around the streets in the city to grab a random bystander, be like, these people have kidnapped me, call 911, please. She could have done that nearly at every turn and never did, because they say, we know the police, I think is what the justification was. But I do think that if a stranger came up to you and was crying frantically and grabbed you and shook you and was like, please call the cops, I've been kidnapped, you would do it. And I think there's a good chance that the police wouldn't just let that slide, even given the circumstances or whatever. So yeah, I just didn't buy it, and I thought it was avoidable. So I had a hard time getting into it. But needless to say, the cast is great. Sean Baker is great. His style of filmmaking is admirable, and it's a well-made movie. I just didn't care for the writing, the script, and Baker's choice to include so much gratuitous, superfluous nudity and sex. But I'm still happy for Sean. I just wish it was for a better movie. I wish it was for the Florida Project or something further down the road. I still think if his best film is not the Florida Project, it will be it's on its way. And because Honora did so well this year, I don't think his best film will get the same amount of attention, because they'll be like, we already did this for Sean back in 2025 for Honora, so maybe we'll give it a few nods here and there, but it's not going to get the acclaim or attention that it deservedly deserves that Honora got, and I think that's disappointing. But you can chew me out, hate me all you want for these opinions. Just please be nice, and pay attention for my Oscars. I do my own Oscars. I don't have a name for them. I think it's just the IMAX Awards right now. Please help me come up with a better name. I do it a little differently. I have my own categories. I get rid of some stupid categories. And I have no real rules or criteria like the Oscars do. I only got 2, right? I got length. So for me, a feature is 60 minutes at least, not 40, which is the Academies, and that makes no sense because when is something 40, 45 minutes long, 50 minutes, even 60, even 80 are ever nominated for Oscars. And then I don't have any qualms about, oh, you didn't get released in theaters, you were straight to streaming. Or you were in theaters, but you didn't play in LA County at 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. My only thing with release is your film had to come out in theaters or streaming from January 1st to December 31st of that year. If your movie came out, premiered at Cannes or Sundance or Berlin the year before, but it didn't go to theaters or streaming until the year later, it's the year later. So your movie came out in May 15th, 2023 at Cannes, but it didn't get to theaters until June 25th, 2024. You're a 2024 film in my eyes. I don't know if there's examples of that this year in my Oscars, but that's just a thing I gotta point out in case you notice it. And I haven't really worked on them yet. They are still in the works. So that video will come out either the end of this week or early next week. I try to be objective as possible. I know that's not possible. We are subjective beings, and that's going to creep in one way or another. I get it. But I just want you to know that I am trying to not let my personal taste creep into those awards, okay? And that's all I got to say. Just like and subscribe, please, and wait for that video and other videos, and have a good rest of your day.
Why are there so many movies?